For more on this developing story is my colleague Jessica Taneja. Jessica, if you can hear me, what would the talks be focusing on?
Well, the talks will be focusing on primarily on trade and looking at how the relationship between the two countries moves forward. Remember, Malaysia is an important partner for India in the ASEAN as well. And of course, we've seen the agreements between the countries in the past, especially the CECA, as we were speaking about earlier, which is the Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement. Also looking at various meetings that the Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim is set to have with business delegation here in New Delhi. We're expecting some announcement, especially in the renewable energy sector. There is already cooperation in the energy sector and infrastructure as well with Malaysia at this point. So enhancing the bilateral trade so far in the last financial year, the trade between the two countries stood at $25 billion. So of course, enhancing that and looking for various other sectors of cooperation. Let's also not forget Malaysia is as keen as India when it comes to expanding the semiconductor industry and potentially being one of the hubs for the supply chains when it comes to the nanochip technology. So of course, a lot on the agenda for the Prime Minister. His first visit, and of course the first by a visit by a Malaysian Prime Minister after 2018. So an important day ahead, and we can expect that this would perhaps continue, and we could expect some MOUs to be signed, particularly in trade and mobility.
Indeed, and as we are watching these visuals, Jessica, of the Malaysian Prime Minister's interactions in the last several hours with India's Prime Minister Modi, and also his visit to Rajghat, where he paid homage to Mahatma Gandhi, the father of the Indian nation. Talk to us a bit, if you will, about you spoke about the bilateral talks that will take place later in the day. What kind of agreements can we expect towards the end of those bilateral discussions?
Well, we could see some movement on the CECA. Some also say there are potential talks on the free trade agreement, but that hasn't been clarified by either side so far. But when it comes to discussions further, yes, there's a lot of expectations from the Malaysian side to, invest in India to that effect. We're also hearing news about Petron, which is a Malaysian non-renewable energy company, to make significant investment in India's non-renewable energy sector. So that could be one potential, cooperation that we could expect. But apart from that, also expecting Malaysia to invest in infrastructure in India, which it has consistently done. And also, let's not forget, Ramesh, 2.9 million people, 2.9 Indians living in Malaysia. So that's a significant diaspora, third largest Indian diaspora anywhere in the world. So of course, people-to-people ties have been very important. Malaysia also being one of the more important tourism hubs. In fact, in just last 1 year, there was a 169% rise of Indian tourist footfall in Malaysia. So of course, a lot more can be expected. And of course, a lot of Indian workers as well, skilled Indian workers in Malaysia. So looking at how their rights can be protected is also something the Indian side is exploring.
Absolutely. And before we let you go, Jessica, very quickly, if you will, for the benefit of viewers joining us from around the world, how would you describe or characterize India-Malaysia ties? We've spoken about bilateral ties. What about in the regional or global context? As we've been reporting here on DD India, Malaysia is a key or central integral part of India's Act East policy, and also within the ASEAN and the wider Indo-Pacific region in terms of, as you mentioned, trade as well as security.
That's correct, Ramesh, and also contentions in South China Sea, because Malaysia is one of the claimants there, and of course India and Malaysia go long back in terms of security cooperation as well. If talks are to be believed, that the Malaysian side is keen on exploring, buying the Tejas aircraft. That could be interesting for India's indigenous, defense industry, which is trying to push for its defense exports to countries like Malaysia in the recent past. So apart from that, we've held, both India and Malaysia have held a lot of exercises as well, military exercises as well. So there is good cooperation between the two countries, especially when it comes to China as well. And of course, talking about when at the time when it was Look East policy and gradually when it translated into the Act East policy, it has been a swift transfer of relationship between the two. The cooperation has strengthened over the years and also an important partner in the Indo-Pacific for India. So Malaysia remains a key ally, though there was a brief moment of fraught relationship between the two countries, but that momentarily has been overcome, and so far in the future it looks like Malaysia and India would align more together given China's threat of territorial expansion, especially when you talk about the South China Sea and the wider Indo-Pacific region.
Indeed. Right, we leave it there, Jessica. Thank you, appreciate it. That was my colleague Jessica Taneja reporting on the ongoing visit to India by Malaysia's Prime Minister